All right, we're live. We're live now, we think. Can everybody see us? Hello, everybody in the room. Hello, people on Zoom, and welcome to our April North Coast Photography Club meeting. Meeting with absolutely no technical issues as usual, but we're good to go. Rick Olson, you're going to be hearing a lot of him tonight. Talk about trips, and he's also doing our presentation tonight. Talk a little bit of business. Our photo challenge is cemetery. So let's get started here. There. Is it not sharing? Somehow that screen was above it in front of it, so it is sharing. Can everybody see the slideshow? All right. What? Yeah, that's what I was looking for. All right. So we're going to talk business. We're going to talk events. Rick's going to talk about the Adamski effect, and then we'll do our photo challenge. So first off, as we usually do, we'll talk about if you haven't paid your club dues yet, you can. It's $20 for an individual, $30 for a family per year. Basically, you get a lot more benefits if you're a paid member than if you're not a paid member. But people who are not paid members can still come to meetings, can still go on most trips. Paid members get to go on workshops. All profits that we make from club expenses go to from the dues, go to pay club expenses such as rent for the Bowen, equipment, events, Zoom, MailChimp. So support your club. So we've been talking this year about incorporating. So Dick's going to kind of tell us where we are on that right now.
So there's not much to report since last time. And the next steps are that I need to get some information from the board members so I can fill out the Secretary of State's office form and incorporate us. After that, or in conjunction with that, we need to go get ourselves a mailbox at the UPS store so we have an official address. And then the board needs to meet to approve the bylaws. Then we're good to go.
So we're almost there. Oh, we started talking early. Okay. Well, went back. All right, field trips. We've got quite a few field trips coming up. A lot of them are combined with the Cobb Photography Society. So we'll let Rick talk about that.
Turn myself on again.
Mhm.
Hey, everybody. So most of you are aware by now about the St. Augustine trip coming up to the Alligator Farm and some other things. May 3rd through the 6th. And hopefully, if you intended to go, you're already signed up because you probably couldn't find a hotel at this point. Really looking forward to that. We've got a couple of day activities too for the middle of the day. So you don't have to smell bird poo from 8 in the morning all the way to 7 p.m. You have a few hours in between to do something else. If you've ever been there, you know what I mean. And then we have the Zoo Atlanta trip, a CPS trip at the end of the month. I guess it's May 27th, whatever that last Saturday is. It's a holiday weekend, which is kind of problematic for some people. But if you think about it, if you get there at 9 o'clock, like our plan is, you're among the first people getting in. Even on a holiday Saturday, it's not going to be too awful bad, and we'll get a chance to get in there, photograph the critters we want to photograph, and get out. And then the Helen Balloon Festival. This will be announced a little bit later, but Dick really has control over that in North Georgia. He's invited Cobb to join in on it, so we're going to be coming up as well. That's a really early one. It's not as bad maybe for most of you folks as it is for the Cobb people, because we got a 2-hour drive. I just figured that map out this morning, so. One thing I want to comment on field trips that are Cobb sponsored, like St. Augustine, like the zoo trip, and like some of the others that are coming up in the future. If it's a CPS/North Georgia trip, I try to track everybody who's going with us through the CPS method, which is using Google Forms. And I just need to know that you want to go. I send you the email. It's got the link in it. It's very easy to fill out. And the reason I do that is so that we know everybody's going to be there. We have your phone number, your social security number and all that stuff too, of course. But mainly so that we can contact you during the trip if we're going to do something different, or if we're going to go out to lunch or something like that. Or worst case, if I need to contact just those people who signed up and say, sorry, the trip's off because whatever, right? So that's why we do it. And for those trips, I'll always say on the Facebook page, with North Georgia, I'll tell you, please contact me to get the sign up form so you can sign up for the trip. That's the only reason we do that. Okay. That's it, Mike.
All right. We'll be hearing from Rick again in a minute.
I should comment on the Helen balloon thing. The timing of that is not my doing. The race begins. The launch is nominally at 7:30 in the morning. The crews, I believe, get access to the field at 6:30. And unfortunately, it means if you want to photograph them setting up the balloons, you need to be there by 6:30. And as Rick said, if you're coming from a distance, that can be a long drive. So you might want to consider getting a room someplace if that's a big concern for you. It's also the case that if we have a bunch of people that want to after that, because once the balloons take off, what you got is an empty field. And Ruby Falls is not very far away. And in the past, we have sometimes gone to breakfast at the Huddle House and then up to Ruby Falls. So we can make a little bit more of a day of it.
Yeah, we do this every year, so it's always fun. So hopefully we'll see a lot of people there. Timmy, are you on?
Yes.
And very loud. The speaker does work. The volume's on the back of that. Hang on just a second. We're going to turn down the volume. You see it on the back? All right. So Timmy and I have talked. We're looking for volunteers to lead photo walks. I'll let you briefly discuss that, Timmy.
Okay, am I better now?
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me, but not super loud. Okay.
Right.
So as far as workshops, there are some that are in the works. One of which is with, and I'm going to have to put out a survey for this one. But this one, Chris Greer, we did a workshop with him a few years ago, and I've been talking to him about doing a Milky Way later on in the summer. And he said something about Watkinsville and the Iron Horse, but he wanted to know how many people would be interested. So I need to put out a little survey. I'll probably do it via Facebook in the next little bit. So be looking out for that. So if you guys are interested in that, so I can get that information back to Chris so we can figure out how we can work that one out. But that'll be coming up this summer, which isn't too far away. And then another thing are the, when we did the surveys back earlier in the year, a lot of people were interested in photo walks. So I'm looking for some volunteers. I've got one that is a possibility, but I'm looking for volunteers who would be interested in leading photo walks in various places in the state. There's nothing that says, it has to be in any particular area. But if you feel like you have expertise and you have a morning or, that you would be willing to donate to the club to lead a photo walk, if you could let me know. And anyway, and let's see. And I think, and I think that's it. That's what I have for now.
I got a lead this afternoon about a possible workshop later this summer. I haven't sent that information to Timmy yet, but I will. But it's on wedding photography, but also light and exposure and a couple other things she put in the email. So I'm going to share that with Timmy, and that may be something we'll set up. There was a club member who brought that to us, and she's taken some of the courses this person provides and says it's real interesting. So give more information once we've actually spoken to the person who would be doing the workshop. If you were on the Zoom workshop we did with Mike Robertson last week, he said he's willing to do another workshop. Of course, he said if you did want to just go out shooting, to contact him, and he gave out his phone number. It's on the presentation. He's on Facebook. So reach out to him if you have any questions following that workshop. But we'll probably set something up out in the field with him. And we have another one, another club member who's going to be a speaker in October, and going to follow up with a workshop in October. But we'll give you those details when we have it. The other thing we have coming up is the Nature's Generosity Traveling Exhibition. This was part of the Wilderness Photography Foundation when Mike Ramey talked to us last year. And we had, I think, 8 photos selected from our club that are going to be in this exhibition. The Cobb group had about, how many were in the Cobb group? I think 8. I think 8. A bunch of the different photography clubs in Georgia had 8. So we had, of those 8 images, from 6 members, a couple people had 2 pictures selected. So the opening for the first exhibit is on April 29th at 1 p.m. at the Fernbank Science Center. A couple people have posted it on Facebook. I'll post it again. So, you know, if you can, support your fellow club members and come out and take a look at this exhibition. In July, it's going to be here at the Bowen. So that's going to be good. So if you can't make it to Fernbank, definitely come to the one at Bowen. I think that's July 1st, whatever that Saturday is. So we'll be putting that on. And that's pretty much it. If anybody else has any comments or questions about events or workshops, let me know. And we're going to start with our presentation now with Rick talking about the Adamski effect, and hopefully I can get this to work right. There we go. A little bit faster than normal.
Hello, everybody. Silence. Do I have 2 mics going on here now? Okay, people online, are you overwhelmed with my voice? Anybody want to comment?
You sound fine.
Sound good.
Okay.
Sounds real good to me.
All right, so what I wanted to do was share with you something that I got involved in a little bit over a year ago called the Adamski effect. And it's basically just a technique for adding a little impact to certain of your images through implied motion. So what is it? I'll give you my definition. This thing will cooperate. It's a selective use of artificial motion blur for the purpose of enhancing impact. That's a lot of words to say. We're going to use a little bit of intentional smearing to add some impact to some of your images. And while that doesn't sound like a really good idea, when you see it, sometimes it works out pretty well. I want to comment too, and I'll tell a quick story from my CPS experience last month about the word impact. Really 2 things. One, I judged a contest for a Florida club recently, and they're a little different. They always have an outside judge come in and judge their competitions. They have a grading system, fairly simple, but not that easy to do for the judge, which is each image has to be graded separately on 3 different numbers from a range of 1 to 10, and it's technical, composition, and impact. And I really had to think about, what does impact mean? Switch over to my CPS experience. We had a judge come in there and pick the winners for the March contest. And there was a photograph. It was an absolutely beautiful pastoral image of a mill with a river running under it, or creek, and fall colors all around it. It looked like it had to have come out of the Northeast somewhere, probably New England. Absolutely beautiful image. And it came in second runner up, which is to say 5th place. And the photographer thought he'd gotten cheated. He thought that really wasn't a fair grade for such a beautiful photograph. And I kind of was in his camp for a little bit. I had a conversation a little bit later with one of our other photographers, and she just kind of nodded her head as I was saying this, and she was smiling. And she says, "But haven't you seen that before?" And I said, "Well, yeah, good examples, bad examples, and in between examples, I've seen it a million times." She said, "That's the point. It's lacking impact because it's not a particularly novel, interesting, unique, either subject or presentation of a subject." So impact matters. And, you know, if you think about the way you look at Facebook images and you're scrolling through the North Georgia images and, oh, great, there's another flower that Rick Olson posted, big deal. And you scroll past that and you get to the next, and then suddenly you see something that makes you go, "Oh, wait a minute, what's that?" And you look a little closer at it, that's impact. And it may not be the same for each person. It may not be the same photos that trigger it for you that would trigger it for me. But there's something about the photo that grabs you. That's what you're going for. So this is one technique, one method of possibly adding a little bit of impact in post-processing to certain of your images. When is a photograph not a photograph anymore, right? When does it go too far? Well, Ansel Adams himself used to alter his black and white film images routinely, and he invented a number of methodologies for doing that, right? He was pretty much the genius on it. And he said very famously, you don't take a photograph, you make it. Well, you make it from start to finish. You make it from the conception of what you want to photograph to driving to the location, to setting up the camera. In his case, if the light wasn't quite right, he put all that crap back in his car and went back and came back the next morning because he was trying to make the ideal photograph. But he also adjusted his photographs in post-processing. So the concept of post-processing is not exactly new. Most of us edit our images, even if we shoot JPEGs, but especially if we're shooting RAW, because obviously with RAW files, you have no choice but to edit. And if you ever want to do a fun test, import a RAW image, shoot it RAW and JPEG in your camera, import them both. And then look at what the difference on them in the on your computer screen. The raw image is going to look listless, lifeless, flat. And if you print them, you'll see the same thing. And the reason is your camera on that JPEG did a bunch of processing to make that image look like a proper image. With a raw file, it's just a huge bunch of data, and the computer is doing the best job it can to show you what it thinks that would look like. But it's really not edited until you edit it. Usually we're going for a look that is impactful but realistic. Most of the time when we're in Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever we use to edit, we're trying to get it to look more realistic. But sometimes we're really trying to recreate what we had in our head when we capture that image. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of times I love to shoot trails, and especially wooded trails. And I will often darken those images quite a bit, especially around the edges, and make it look almost kind of spooky, kind of going into the trail off into the distance. And I'm going to show you somebody else's photo that does that in a little bit here. That's kind of how I felt about that scene, and I let my feelings affect how I edited that image, right? So sometimes that's what we're trying to do. Sometimes we're trying to make it look exactly like we saw it, and sometimes not. At the extreme, and we've all seen images like this, they have clearly evolved well beyond being a regular original capture. Are they still photographs? You know, at what point is it something else? They might not be. They might be beautiful and artful, but maybe they're not really photographs anymore. They can also be very impactful. So we're talking a little bit about photographic art and photographic digital art here. And I guess what I'm doing is making a case for experimenting with that. You may not always like the results, but I think when you create a piece that is photographic art and somebody looks at it and they can tell that you made serious adjustments on the image, it's just obvious from the thing. I kind of personally, I don't have a problem with that. I feel like that's my right as an artist to take that photograph and do with it as I please. And if it comes out looking really cool as a result, even if it's unrealistic, so be it. I make both photographs and photographic digital art, and I have a lot of fun doing both. The Adamski method or Adamski technique certainly crosses into the realm of photographic digital art. There's no question about it. When he's done with one of these things, it's not a photograph, it's something else. So who is Adamski? So Josh Adamski is a professional fine art photographer living in Israel. He was born in Tel Aviv in '48, so he's even older than Mike, believe it or not. I know.
Hey, Rick,
Still productive. His work is beautiful, and if you look him up online, you'll find a lot of his stuff. Very easy to find it.
Rick,
By the way,
do you have a slideshow?
sorry, what?
Do you have a slideshow? Because we're not seeing it at home. Are you sharing your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We thought we were. Yeah, sorry, we should be. Hang on a sec.
Okay, Rick's gonna have to start over.
No.
Hang on.
The good news is you haven't seen my sexiest slides yet, just the other ones.
All right, how about now?
Much better.
Are you seeing it?
Yes.
I think it started over the time. Yeah, it did. I'll get it.
Get over here, Mike.
Told us beforehand.
Can everybody see the cover slide, the Adamski effect?
Investigating and starts feeling his responsibility.
Lucy always did.
Yeah, yes, over here.
Thank you. To the other people,
Hold the meeting.
so I agree.
Looking good.
All right, I'm gonna skip through these because we just covered them. There's my definition of what it is. How can I get rid of this card?
Minimize. Oh, geez. Go to the more.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So this is what we were just talking about with Ansel Adams. This computer is not happy. Now it's frozen.
Break my computer.
Evidently.
It's a mouse.
Okay. And do this old school. All right, so we were talking about who he is. He calls his own work, Josh Adamski calls his own work photo impressionism, and I think that's a really good name for it. When you'll see it, you'll understand what I mean. He uses Photoshop to create gorgeous images. Now he's using selective artificial motion blur to do this. I don't know why I have a blue streak across the view right now, but it's not part of the presentation, so
That wasn't.
no, this is a lousy computer artifact. Anyway, to me, the result straddles the world of abstract and surrealistic. And I think that's something you don't think about with photography is surrealism. I mean, that's more of a painter's realm, right? But he's figured out a technique for doing it. So is it just a Photoshop thing? I looked into this a little bit. I'm not a Luminar person, but I know that they offer some sort of a blurring templates package that you can download. But the control, according to those who were writing about it, is somewhat limited. GIMP, if you're not aware, is an absolutely free, freeware open source code application that acts a lot like Photoshop. It's almost identical in terms of functionality. GIMP can do it. For our purposes, I'm going to be talking in terms of Lightroom and Photoshop because that's the only thing I know to the miserable extent that I do. Motion blur can be applied in any direction and to varying degrees. And with multiple layers, multiple iterations can be applied. In other words, you can have some motion blur horizontal, some vertical, some diagonal. You can do as many layers as you want to make. You can play with it as much as you want and apply each of those only to the portion of the image that you want them applied to. And I'm going to make a comment right now because I see a couple of people photographing the screen. You can do that, but it won't be necessary. If you want the presentation, I'm not real worried about sharing it with people. So there will be a PDF version that Mike has that he can email to you if you're interested in having the presentation, okay? So what's it look like? Well, except for that blue line across it, this is my favorite. That's really distracting. I've never seen it do that. I don't know what that is. Nope, that ain't me. Anyway, this is. It's on this screen too. Anyway, this is one of Josh's, this is one of my favorite images of his. And when you look at this thing, you want to take it in for a while. He's taken these two rows of trees and he's applied a little bit of blur vertically and a little bit horizontally to create this weird look. He's also feathered it considerably from the bottom part of the screen to the upper part of the screen. He's feathered it, which is easy enough to do with some practice when you're playing with your brushes. The other thing I would say is this is clearly also a composite image. There's no way these three elements were sitting there waiting to be photographed. You've got this scraggly looking Charlie Brown Christmas tree over here on the left, right? And then you've got, this is a man and his dog walking down the center, according to Josh. I thought it was a woman. And then over here, you've got a bird. And so you've got your, odd number of subjects, right? Three things. You've got nice balance in the image. Just artistically, it's a really nice little composition, but it also has that weird ethereal feel caused by the blur. I just think this is one of his better images. Notice that he keeps the subject sharp always. This one, think about a cityscape. We've all shot some cityscapes. Cities are busy. Cities have a lot of activity going on. There's cars everywhere. There's signs, there's traffic lights, there's people. There's all kinds of stuff going on. He has taken a city and managed to make it look stark and dark and interesting. I'm not sure I want to visit the city, but I might want to look at it from where this dude is seeing it. Right? It's just kind of take it in from a distance. But notice you've got your one subject here with a shadow even, and he's sharp. Everything else is blurred. The buildings are blurred vertically and horizontally. The foreground is blurred horizontally. So he's done a couple different layers with this one to get that look. Love this one too. And this is a much more subtle use. He's got his subjects, of course, on the right side third of the image. But what he's done is he's put some blur into the trees that flank this pathway. And he's kept the pathway clear. It almost looks like this dude and his son maybe just walked out of this bizarre forest, right? This bizarre, creepy forest into the light. I think it's just a gorgeous image. This one doesn't really do much for me, but I show it just to give you an example of something different. Since most of his images are landscapes, seascapes, cityscapes, that kind of thing. Here's a much closer. This is something you would normally do as a macro, probably. So I think this is probably an iris thinking about opening up, and then a few irises behind it. And he's chosen to have only one of them sharp. Another very cool image. The colors are phenomenal, and I'm sure that's largely manufactured. I would imagine it was a really cool sunrise or sunset, but he definitely took some liberties with the light. But notice on this one, the sky actually looks like it might just be blurred from a slow shutter, right? It actually looks kind of natural. If you've ever done any really long exposures of clouds moving over the water. But the sea, he has smeared sideways, and the shoreline, it's got a diagonal. See the lines in here? He's taken this lower part, the shoreline, and he's smeared that stuff diagonally a little bit. And I keep talking about the smear and the blur and all that. I'm going to show you how he's done that in a moment here. One more example. Not sure what this thing is at here in the center, but you have a couple of subjects, and he's chosen to leave the clouds up here at the very top unblurred. And I think that's kind of cool. You have two totally different kinds of cloud structures up here, and then you've got your subjects down here. Not my favorite, but I think that's a pretty cool image. This is a technique to try on different kinds of shots. You just don't know for sure what it's going to look good on. I've mentioned that it's probably best, generally speaking, on wide angle stuff, right? Landscape, seascape, that sort of thing. And you've seen some of his amazing examples of that. But you can try it on other stuff too and just see, maybe surprise yourself. It's not for everything. Consider in particular, if you're looking for a subject photograph, you're going through your Lightroom catalog or whatever, think of something or find something that already has a bias to it, a directional bias. It already has some things that are more vertical or things that tend to add a horizontal feature to the composition. Things that already have that built in a little bit, and you exaggerate that a little with the Josh's effect. Some images really lend themselves, and then others seem to, until you've wasted 3 hours of your life that you will never get back. And you'll say, why the hell did I think that photograph was going to work? Not that I have any direct experience with that several times. Some of my own attempts, I'll show you real quickly here. This one was from a cell phone shot I took one morning. I used a black and white filter. An infrared black and white filter in order to get the bizarre white look on all these foreground weeds. Those are bright green, of course, in real life. And then I just used the Adamski effect on the trees in the background. So I have a little bit of a pathway here from whatever world this is to whatever world that is. This one I took, we did a field trip last year to Providence Canyon with Cobb. And this image is from the top. You've got to walk, if you've ever been there, there's a walkway around the upper rim on one side. And then you can also go down and walk through the canyons down below. Grand Canyon of the East, maybe, I don't know what they call it. But notice you've got these pieces of fence sticking out. That is, I was literally standing at the precipice of this thing. And you don't want to take one more step forward from that spot. But what I thought would be interesting would be to put some blur in the most distant part of this little valley down here. And so I tried that. Not sure I like it, but an example of something different. Here's one that I do like. This was, it's always fun to take advantage of your mistakes. So I got to Brasstown Bald on a warm August evening. It was starting to cool off. And of course, I was getting condensation on my filter on the lens, but I didn't see that until I'd taken about 10 photographs of the Milky Way. And later in post, I saw this one particular shot of the Milky Way that exposed fairly well. And you can see that softness to the whole image. That's caused by the mist that was on that filter. So what I did was I took advantage of that, and I took the foreground, which is trees, and I applied a little bit of the Adamski effect vertical. So now the foreground has that same kind of softness as the sky does. My wife likes this one. I think I might actually have to print it. And then sometimes I just have fun with it. Went to the Southeast Rail Museum, and there's these train tracks that converge, and then they end right at this wall of trees. And I thought it would be fun to play with the trees and then maybe make a little opening through there for the train to come through. I'm not that good in Photoshop, as you can tell, but this could be really cool if somebody had any skill. All right, so this is the example I'm going to walk through. It's again about the inherent orientations, vertical, horizontal, what have you, that are baked into your photograph. I'm going to walk through how I sort of made this one. It's a photo from Sweetwater Park. This is the original photograph, imported into Lightroom. And it was, as you can see, it's a little lackluster. The colors aren't very strong, but the water has a 1.6 second exposure to it. So the water has a nice blur already horizontally through a slow shutter, long exposure. What I want to do is I want to smear all of this. I want that blue line gone, but I want to smear all of these background trees, but not this big one. I want that to be sharp. I want the sky to be sharp, and I don't want to mess with my water. I already did that the way I want it. And then these foreground rocks, I want them to be sharp. So that's kind of my mission as I start out on the thing. But also, as I was looking at it, well, first I did a little bit of cleaning up on the exposure itself and the color. There's the original raw file, nice and flat, useless. And there's with just a little bit of basic edits in Lightroom. And then I decided I really would like the orientation better going the other way. So I flipped it horizontally. Now, this is a matter of taste, and of course, everybody will tell you that we, as Easterners, Westerners, we read left to right, right? So I thought I would have more fun making the photograph kind of move the other direction, put the motion of the photograph from right to left. So that's why I flipped it. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I was happy with it. Then, because the colors were fairly lame, this is supposed to be a fall colors photograph, but it was a little past peak. So I thought I'm going to go ahead and make this a black and white. So I did a black and white conversion. Now we start with the Adamski effect, and I'm showing you screenshots from Photoshop. So what we do here is we take from Lightroom anyway, I right click on the image. I get this pop-up context menu. I click edit in, and then I choose Photoshop. And now I've got my my original layer down here, what's called the background down here on the bottom. I right click on that and choose duplicate layer. There's other ways to do it. In Photoshop, there's no keyboard shortcuts. I'm a moron with Photoshop. I just get by, but I know there's other ways to do it. And when you do that, when you say create a new layer, you get the pop-up allowing you to name it and do some other things. I'm going to show you what this name means a little later, but typically when I create the first layer, I'm going to say Adamski, and then I'm going to give it a V if it's a vertical that I want to do, H if it's a horizontal smear that I want to do. It tells me what that layer is going to be for, right? I'm getting other pop-ups down here. What the hell is that? There we go. Here's a closer look at that pop-up. And what you've got is two controls. You have the angle and the distance. The angle is just what it sounds like. And 90 degrees means vertical, right? So if I want to tilt, if I want to change the direction of the blur, I can change that number by typing in a different number. Or I can grab this bar down here, excuse me, I can grab this bar here, this vertical bar in the middle of the circle, and drag it around and change the angle that way. Either one will work. Then this control is how much blur. 200 is a little, 400 is significant, 800 is a bunch. And I'll tell you that a lot of Adamskis actually have 800. But those are arbitrary numbers. It can be any number in between. I chose 90 degrees for this one and 400 pixels of smear, as I said. And so this is what you get. That applies to the whole image. The whole image is now blurred in that manner. Now what I want to be able to do is start taking this out from the areas that I want to preserve the original photograph. So I go down, I have my layer highlighted, and I go down to the bottom here and click on the little camera icon, which is layer mask. I'm going to create a layer mask here. I've got a brush selected and my brush size. I'm going to choose the type of brush, or the mode as they call it, and it's clear. Meaning I'm going to use the brush to clear what I just did, the effect that I did out of these areas where I don't want it. And you see here's an example. I was starting to brush it out up from the tree. What's going to happen is you're going to clear it from some part that you wanted to leave it in. And you have that oh crap moment. Photoshop users know this, but to me it was news. Go over here and flip between the conceal and reveal. Just toggle that. Go back with your brush, paint it back in where you accidentally did it. Flip this back and then go back to work on it. You control opacity and the flow up here. And I will typically, big areas, I'm going to go really fast. I'll leave the opacity full and the flow rate full and just blow it out. But when I start to get into areas where I'm close to the edges, then I'm going to soften it up and slow it down to make sure that I've got a little more breathing room. The other thing I want to do is be able to use particularly the opacity component to soften the edges between where the blur exists and where I'm sharp. I'll do a little bit of feathering along there. And you might remember that first photo I showed you, the first one from Josh Adamski himself. He did a good bit of feathering on those vertical trees so that down near the bottom, they were a little sharper, a little more real looking. And then as you got up higher, they were softer. When you're done, you click File, Save, send it back to Lightroom, and you've got your final product. This particular iteration is kind of a rush job. It can be better. If you look at the border between the trees that I blurred and the foreground here, that could be a little bit smoother. And if I'd spent more time on that with a soft brush with just a very low opacity, it would probably have come out better. But overall, it's not a bad presentation. But what it did was it took my photograph from Sweetwater and made it look a little bit weird, a little moody, a little otherworldly, the kind of thing that might make people stop when they're scrolling through on Facebook and say, what the hell did he do? And then they scroll up and look for my pretty pictures of flowers. I'm going to show you one more just to give you another example, and an easier one really in many ways. This is another image I tried it on. It's a sunrise shot from the Outer Banks from 2018. It's a nice capture, but it doesn't have a whole lot of pop to it. And I thought, I also had a mission that was presented to me by my wife. So I'm going to show you what that's about. This is what I made out of that photo. And I'll show them to you side by side. Now, I will tell you, I know photographers who are very, very, very good at long exposure photography who looked at this image initially thought that's what it was. Didn't recognize that it had actually been doctored. What we did on this one, I put a very slight amount of horizontal blur, 200 pixels. And then I went back with my brush and I took it all out for the sun. And then I feathered it out around the sun, and I feathered it a little bit down here where the sun's reflecting off the wet sand. And that's it. The rest of it is the horizontal blur. And I did that because we had just redone the floors in our house. We had all the hardwoods redone, and we had hardwoods added to this family room of ours. And Mary bought this 9x13 rug, this abstract rug with these curvy patterns in it. And she wanted something to sort of complement the curvy, colory patterns in that rug. So there's the photo up there. And this is printed on acrylic, which really makes it pop off the wall. The one thing I got to do now is this horrible green garbage rock on the fireplace, that's got to go. That'll make it work a lot better. But the photo's done and the floors are done. I'm going to share 2 links with you. And again, if you want the PowerPoint, you'll get it as a PDF, but the links will still be functional. So you can click on them in the PDF and it'll take you straight out. I will tell you that the first thing here is a web page. It's all text from Photography Chef. I actually found that on Adobe's website. So Adobe was so into Josh's thing that they got with Josh and they had him explain how to do it. And they got this link out there for you through the Adobe website that gives you the step-by-step. And that's a more elaborate example than what I walked through here. Since we're just doing PowerPoint, I just did one layer. This example will show you using doing multiple layers or multiple directions of blur. The second one, I found this unfortunately after I had built this presentation, and I really love it. Nicole S. Young does a lot of really good YouTubes on Photoshop. She has found an actual improvement to the whole technique. So if you want to try this technique, my suggestion would be go to her link first and watch that YouTube. Because what she's figured out is a way to do it in reverse. Instead of blurring the whole thing and then removing the blur where you don't want it, she does it the more logical, in my mind, way of adding the blur where you do want it. There's a few more steps, and it's a little bit elaborate, but especially if you're a Photoshop person, it won't be hard for you. So that's my deal. Any questions? Any questions in the room first? Yes. I'm going to try to repeat what you said. I heard the first part of it. You're talking about making it a smart layer. And the reason for doing that is? Okay. So the suggestion is make the layers smart layers. So when you apply the blur, if you don't like it, you can go back and edit that smart layer. One thing about it, when you go into this blur thing and you set it, whatever you set, it's showing you immediately what that looks like on the main picture. So you actually have the opportunity even before you finish creating the layer to see what it's going to look like. But that's a good suggestion too, especially if you're going to do multiple layers. Any other questions? How about online?
Can you put up that last slide again?
I'm sorry?
I wanted you to put the last slide up again. Thanks.
Oh. Can you see it okay?
Yes.
You're having trouble seeing it, just message me this weekend, and I have the PDF, but I can email it to you.
Is it also going to be posted on the group Facebook page?
Say that again?
Is the presentation also going to be posted on the Facebook page?
The meeting will be on the Facebook page as long as the video works. So you'll be able to watch the presentation again.
Cool, thank you.
The PDF, I don't really want to post the PDF. I will give it to anybody who asks me for it.
Okay.
And it's pretty freaking big.
That's why.
Just beware. Go back over how to use an image, subject to use. Oh, how to choose an image. So to that question from Pam, thank you, Pam. I choose an image based on the fact that there's already sort of a directional orientation baked into the image. A seascape is a great example because, and I'll just go back a couple slides, I guess. If I can. A seascape is a great example because you already have an orientation that's horizontal, right? You've got a horizon line, shoreline, you've got the wave lines there. Everything in there is horizontal. So So when I played with this one, that was kind of how I chose it. And made the decision to blur it horizontally because that sort of orientation was already there. With the prior example, the black and white example with the trees, almost everything there is vertical, except for the creek itself. So the orientation is vertical. I'm going to look at that and say this might be a good candidate for some vertical application. Does that answer the question? Oh, somebody's telling me, sorry, I couldn't see that when I was presenting. To get rid of the blue line, stop the presentation, then restart it from the current slide. Okay. Well, actually stopping it doesn't do it. We'd have to probably close it and restart it, but that's okay, because it's done.
Hopefully it won't be there when we do the challenge.
It's gone. Are there any other questions? Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mike, back to you.
Thank you, Rick.
Welcome.
Very cool. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and do the weekly challenge. So.
No crap. Three down, wasn't there?
What?
Which one's mine?
We can figure it out afterwards.
I think it's probably the fat one.
Okay, people at home can, whoop, no, it's doing. People at home, can you see the PowerPoint?
No,
Now,
I put a couple up here.
My mouse is disappearing. There's green.
yes, we can see it now.
People at home, can you see the
yes,
screen?
Yes.
Okay. So. Five. There we go, and hide floating neutron. I hope that's not gonna stay up there. Okay. You're good.
Please let me know if you can't hear me online. Is it this microphone? Okay. Our monthly challenge this month is cemeteries. And if you are new to the club, I think we have one new member here tonight. And if we have anybody online. Our monthly challenge is for paid members, and paid members are allowed to submit one image a month for the challenge that is less than 2 years old. And it's a single image file. We don't allow composites in this challenge. And I didn't take that out again, did I? You must be at a meeting. We've taken that rule out this year, so you don't have to be at the meeting in order to participate and win a place in this challenge. And then the photographer of the year is the person who accumulates the most points from the challenges throughout the year. And when we vote tonight, we'll vote for our top 3 favorites, and we award points for the top 5 finishers. For those of you who are voting online tonight, after you vote for your 3 favorites, you want to email your votes to vote@ngaphoto.club. And I will show you that email address again at the end. We have seven entries tonight, so. And this is number one. Can everybody in the room see? Okay, all right. Number two. Number three. Four. Five. Six. And seven. Going backwards, number six. Five. Four. Three. Two. And one. And I'll go through them one more time and then everybody can have a chance to vote. Two. Three. Four. Five. Six. Seven. And if you are voting online, again, that email address is vote@ngaphoto.club.
All right, and don't leave yet because we have important news about next month's meeting. So next month's meeting is not going to be at the Bowen. We do not have the Bowen next month. They have an event, so we're going to do next month's meeting on Zoom. Still going to be the third Friday, May 19th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Since we're doing it on Zoom, we're not going to have a speaker. Instead, we're going to do our annual editing challenge, which is always fun. We have one person he is giving us a raw image. He sent it to me yesterday, and we're all going to edit it however we want. You can go crazy. You can do composites, whatever you want with it. And the only thing is that we're just going to ask you to tell us what you did, whether you just go for a normal edit or something way out there. And it's always a good learning experience. And then Tony will, he's the one who gave us the image. At the end, he will show us how he edited the image. And something we're doing different this year, he is going to give away a prize to whoever he thinks does the best edit of his image. So watch for information on that. So you might win something next month by participating in the editing challenge. And then we'll have our regular monthly photo challenge. And the theme next month is trees. So that'll be next month, May 19th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. In June, we'll be back here, but May was the only month we couldn't get the Bowen this year. And that's it. We're done early tonight. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks everybody who joined us online. I'll get the video up on Facebook over the weekend on our YouTube page. And if anybody wants a copy of that PDF, just message me or email me and I'll go ahead and send it out to you. And that's it. Everybody have a good evening and good weekend. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna turn on. Yes.
Well, so people can see me.